Great. Well, thank you. I am here today to talk about the new Banner 9 faculty and advisor module. So this will replace the Banner 8 version. So it will replace many of the links that you're used to seeing on the faculty and advisors tab. The current plan is to have both the Banner 8 and Banner 9 versions available through the end of this semester. So for faculty you speak to, or for those of you who are also faculty, you can enter your grades in either place, but ITS asks that you not enter grades in both places just to kind of avoid any duplication. We have done testing and it is fine to use both versions, but they ask that you not use both versions at the same time. And then starting in the spring semester, only the Banner 9 pages will be available and the Banner 8 pages will be retired. Basically, I have gone through and kind of created a crosswalk of basically if you're used to clicking on a certain link in Banner 8, where you can find that information in Banner 9. That's available both on our website as well as the knowledge base article that kind of gives the faculty grade entry instructions. We put it both places, and I can send out the document as well as send the links after we're done here today. And that's the document that I'll be going through today, is basically just kind of showing you where to find things in the new version. And that's kind of the approach I'm taking, because kind of one thing to keep in mind is that largely all of the things that you would normally do on the faculty and advisor tab stay mainly the same. They're just, the Banner 9 pages are kind of updated, more user-friendly and nicer looking pages, but they all function largely the same. Some nice improvements to note, especially for faculty grade entry, is that, as I'm sure many of you know, you can only enter grades for 25 students per page in the Banner 8 version. In the Banner 9 version, you can enter grades for up to 100 students per page. So hopefully that will avoid some of the issues with grades not being saved or people timing out on pages, is that you can enter more grades at once. And there's a few other improvements that I'll talk about as we go through it, but let's go ahead and jump in. So if you are looking up course information or student information, I'm sure you're used to either clicking the term selection or CRN selection. These have kind of been consolidated with other pages. You can just go straight to grade entry now. And the grade entry is actually also a consolidation of both the midterm and final grades. So previously, you would see the midterm grade entry and the final grade entry as separate links. They've been consolidated to just grade entry, and this is the new landing page. So these are the new options. So that if you go to the same place to enter your midterms or your finals, obviously based on the time of the semester, only one of those grades will be available, and faculty will be able to enter the appropriate grade. But they've kind of pared all of that down. And then once you get to the grade entry is where you can either select the specific CRN or search by term. It lists all courses associated with a faculty member. So it shows historical coursework as well. So it's also an easier way to get to historical grades if they want to look those up. And then you can search either by the specific CRN. The search bar is actually pretty useful. You can do course titles, the course number, or just if you want to see the courses that you need to interact with for that specific term, you can search by the term and it'll filter the list that way. And it works the same way for both midterm and final grades. It lists all courses, and then you would need to do that initial search to narrow it down to the course that you want to interact with. It also gives instructors some statuses, which they had not seen before. So you'll notice that all of these are both green and green, but you'll see up here that some of them are not started or in progress. And that just means that if a faculty member has started to enter grades but has not entered grades for all students, it'll say in progress. And then once they have completed and saved grades for all students, it'll switch to completed. And then the nice thing on final grades is it actually shows if that section has been rolled or not. So instructors, especially for earlier part of terms when we roll at 8 weeks, will be able to see that their grades have been rolled.
Josh, can you zoom in on your screen a little bit?
Sure. Is that better? Okay. So then, as I said before, the midterm and final grade summary has changed into just so this is the final grade worksheet that you'd be used to seeing, or the midterm grades, and it looks very much the same. I've obviously removed all of the student information here so that we can post this on our website, but it'll list all of the students. You can sort by alphabetical order or reverse alphabetical order and anything like that. You can also search for a specific student. So, if you had all of your grades but one and you were waiting on someone to complete an assignment, you can just search for that student, especially in a long list of students for a large section. That can be very helpful. You can find that one specific student and enter the grade for them that way. And it works the same way with the search bar. You'll have the final grade dropdown, just like you would have in the Banner 8 version, with only the grades listed for the appropriate grade mode for that course. And then it still requires the last date of attendance for the FSA grades. The faculty schedules have also been consolidated. So previously there would be the faculty detail schedule and the faculty schedule by day and time. So these have been kind of consolidated together so that you can click on that faculty detail schedule, see the different courses you have, see the days and times. And then if you click the day and time, obviously this is the old view, and it's now called Week at a Glance and shows you the same thing. And again, this is another great example of just the fact that these pages are doing mainly the same things, they just look a little nicer. The detail class list and summary class list has also been consolidated into one page. So it is just class list now. It allows the instructor or anyone that has access to this tab to pull up the CRN, and then you can see either the detail or summary toggle, and that will show you the summary obviously just gives you the list of students, and then the detail gives you that additional information, their major, their catalog year, their admit term, things like that, as you can see here. Anywhere that you see and again, have obviously blanked out the student name and ID, but anywhere that you see the student name and ID inside the new Banner 9 module will actually be a link that will allow you, I'll skip down a bit, to go to the new student profile. So the student profile has also been updated and is basically just a place that took a bunch of pages that were kind of their own standalone pages and have put them all together in one place. This can be accessed a few different ways, and we'll go over that in just a minute. But anytime you see a student name, whether it's on a class roster or if you're looking up, searching for a student individually, you'll be able to click on that student and get to this page. This page is where you'll find previous student grades. You'll be able to, as you can see here, view their registered courses. You can get additional information about their degree, catalog term, admit term, all of that information, as well as if they have a secondary curriculum, and then you can see their hours and GPA. This is also where you'll find their biographical information, so as well as just general student information, such as their level, their classification, their status, their standing, things like that. And this is also where you can find their advisor. It's listed like it was in Banner 8. So I'll skip back up and talk about grade modifications quickly. And then we can talk more about some of the advisor and student tools that I'm sure you all are used to using. So the grade modification has also been upgraded from a Banner 8 version into a Banner 9 version. You can either utilize the Banner 8 version or the Banner 9 version, just like you can for grade entry. We have tested it. It does work that if you submit a grade mod in Banner 8, it's viewable in the Banner 9 version and vice versa. But again, ITS would like to ask people to not use both at the same time. So, don't have the same CRN pulled up in Banner 8 and in Banner 9. Just kind of, if you want to try out the Banner 8 one, you can do that. So it looks, again, a little nicer than before. It allows you to select the term and the CRN, and then gives you the list of students, and you can modify their grade just as before. There's a few nice improvements on the grade modification specifically. So previously, if you needed to submit multiple grade modifications for a single CRN, you would have to research for that CRN and go back into it. The new grade modification page allows you to just click back to the tab and submit multiple grade modifications for various students all on one page. Before I move on to some of the other student tools, are there any questions about grade entry and grade modification? Okay. So again, the registration overrides is probably one of those things that you all are used to seeing. I'm sure you're familiar with clicking on the registration overrides page, and then you can see the overrides for a student. This page looks almost identical. Again, it's just kind of updated. It works the same way. For instructors, they can only put in overrides for their specific CRNs that they're assigned to, and they see those options in the list, and then can override the student into those courses. So all of that functions the same way. It follows all the same rules that we have in Banner 8. It's just an updated page in Banner 9. And then the student menu. So I'm sure a lot of you are used to clicking on the student menu, and this is where you can see things like the student schedule, their just general student information, things like that. And so this is the second page. When you click on the student menu, this is what it looks like now. And then the new way to do it is the search for a student / view student profile. And once you click on that, it will pull up a search screen that allows you to search by student name. If you know the ID number, you can just put in the ID number, and then it is the direct navigation to get to the student profile, which shows you that the condensed version of all of those pages onto this one page. The one thing that is probably the most different than the Banner 8 version is there used to be the page where you would click on faculty advisors, then you would click the advisor menu, and then you could see your advisee grade summary. The way that you do that now is to find the student that you're looking up in the previous screen that I showed you, and then click on the view student profile, and then there is a link on the left side that's view grades. And then once you click that view grades screen, you can see grades for your student. That's probably the most different page in that since a lot of those other pages that were associated with the student and advisor menu are consolidated onto this page, we also wanted to put the grades view on this page as well. So those are kind of the big changes. I would say that it's mainly cosmetic changes to the majority of pages, but we wanted to kind of go over the new stuff and see if anybody had any questions.
We do have a question. Emily has asked, can we no longer see the concise schedule with days, times, locations for our students?
Yes. So all of the various schedule views are still available. They're just available on the same page. So there's like a detail, or there's like a summary and a detail view, and you'll be able to see that on the same page. It's just a toggle on that page.
Okay, so a toggle from the detailed view to the summary view. Okay. And also a question, is there a week at a glance view? I'm assuming that would be another toggle as well.
Yes, I believe the week at a glance is, yes. So there's a independent link that is student week at a glance, and you click that link, find your student, and would be able to see their schedule that way as well.
Will student transcripts be available? Will it still show us? Okay.
Yeah, the student transcript, there is coming a Banner 9 version, but that is one of the things that did not make it into this upgrade. So the student transcript will be the same Banner 8 transcript that you're used to using.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any way to get a screen with a full list of all of our advisees' grades at once?
I am not sure. I will have to look and see. I imagine if it is not available in here, that I'm guessing we have an Argos app for that, but I will make a note of that and see what the equivalent to that is.
Yeah, if you could get that information back to us so we can share it with the AAC Council in the next MOW, that'd be great.
Sure.
Because that would, if it is an Argos solution, then I imagine we may have a lot more advisors wanting to get Argos access than have it now.
Josh, real quick, sir, the campus location on the profile, it just says WVU student. Will that differentiate there between Potomac State and Tech?
The campus, I'm assuming that that is tied to student campus. So yes, I'm guessing that it's the SWA,
Yeah.
SPA, or STA.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
We also have a question, will GradeSync from eCampus work with Banner 9?
Yes, so we tested that as part of the implementation process. GradeSync works with either Banner 8 or Banner 9.
Great. Do we have any other questions from anyone? Will the student schedule show which building they are in?
I believe that it does. I'm not sure if I have a screenshot of that or not, but I believe that it does.
We also have an advisor who has checked so far two advisees, and each student's week at a glance view. It displays every class session as 60 minutes on the daily calendar, regardless of whether it's actually a 50, 70, 75, or 170 minutes. The text
Okay.
data are correct, but the display is misleading.
Okay. I will have to look into that.
And Todd, I just want to be clear about your comment. We need that. I'm assuming you're referring to being able to know what building they're in.
Yeah, if I'm going to be, if I'm going to have a student come and meet me or something, I need to know where they are. Because if their class ends at 2 o'clock and I want them to see me in Evansdale, where are they at 2 o'clock?
Right.
That's important. So don't take that functionality away.
Great. Any other questions? Josh, I don't know if you saw the comment, but I did say me likey. I'm sure I will be complaining at some point because, you know, it's just change. But I will be happy with it once I get used to it. I know. Amay, do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so, but thanks, Jen.
Okay. All right. Well, wonderful. Josh, thank you so much for bringing this very timely information to us. You can go ahead and email those documents to me, and I can then send them out in the next message of the week for the AAC listserv.
Sure.
So without
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So now I'll turn it over to Dr. Witters. Evan, if you'd like to take it away and all of your fabulousness from the provost's office that you have to share with us.
Thanks, Jim. Hey, guys. Hope you're doing well, and I hope you had a good Thanksgiving break. Well deserved for everyone, I'm sure. We're almost through. At least it's starting to feel that way. So hopefully we can get through the last couple of weeks here without any major catastrophes, COVID related or not. Yeah, so let me share my screen. I came here today to give a general update, which I like to do. People are nice enough to invite me. Jen, it doesn't look like I can share the screen. There we go. Thank you. Let's see, can you see that? Does that look right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My screen is doing odd things for me right now, but as long as you can see it. So yeah, this I think will be an interesting update because not only did we have a few, I don't think they're huge policy changes, but a couple. I wanted to give you an update on how all our student success efforts have gone, but also to give the group an update on what we were thinking in the provost office in terms of sort of advising and where we see ourselves going in advising over the next, I don't know, couple of years, perhaps. I'm sure you have heard that we're taking a holistic look at advising across, we looked at it across all undergraduates and a little bit of graduates, but mostly undergraduates, but particularly at main campus, and trying to decide where our advising works really well, where it's more inconsistent, and really how we can best serve our students. And this is sort of part of a broader approach, really more than anything else, to improve our student metrics, student success metrics, particularly freshman retention rate, which is something we always measure, but also graduation rates and how we can get those higher. They're trending in the right direction, as you'll see in a few slides, but we think that to really get those numbers where we'd like them to be, which is probably in about the 85% retention range, you know, at the bottom end. Ideally, we'd of course want to be at 90%, but that would be a large transition for this campus, and difficult considering, you know, we are different in many ways than other land grants, which are highly selective. And we don't tend to be, particularly with in-state students, and also get the graduation rate up to about 67% or so. I can show you some comparison with some other schools, but we think those are achievable goals, but they'll probably require some investment centrally to get there. And the number one investment we think we'll have to make is in advising, mainly supporting our advisors better, and probably having more of you. Or in some senses, maybe less of you, but you'll see what I mean hopefully in a second. Not less of anyone here, but less perhaps transactional faculty advising going on, and more of what we consider some sort of professional advising in terms of what our students can expect. So my first slide here, and again, this may be hard to see. Are you seeing the collapsed version or the slideshow version?
We are seeing the collapse, so we can see your grid of all your slides on the
Okay.
left-hand side. So
I'll move that over. Again, I get sort of a weird view on that. That should increase the text size a little bit.
actually, that just took it to smaller because
Oh,
we're
great.
seeing the preview of your next slide now on the right-hand side.
All right. I don't know if that's fixable at this point in time, but I'm happy to mail the slides out so you guys can see them in greater detail. I'm sorry, I know it's going to be a little bit challenge. Try to zoom it up a little bit, see if that helps. There, is that better at all?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So we EAB, who's an educational consultant that works with us quite a bit at the university, and also is the owner of Navigate that we license from them, did a advising survey. I think it was in April, I want to say April and May was when most of it was done. And they went out and they talked to the units and talked to our advisors, and talked to faculty and talked to chairs, talked to some people in our office, and tried to get an overall sense of where we are in our advising compared to other institutions. And then they more or less ranked sort of where we are in terms of whether we were developing good structures, had sufficient structures, or were really strong in particular areas. Now, we can disagree with a lot of the points here, but generally what they sort of came up with is that the places where we're weakest is in sort of standardized practices across the university in terms of advising. That we have excellent processes in a number of the units, but that there isn't really sort of any consistent advising approach across the university that would allow us to become more data-driven and more actionable on the data we receive. When we talk about schools, we've talked to Georgia State, we've talked to Colorado State, we've talked to Middle Tennessee State, all of which are sort of known and exemplars in advising. And at all those places, what they're able to do is provide advisors with actionable data. So in terms of who's registered, who's doing well, who's not doing well, predictably, you know, where your students are falling down, where they're, you know, excelling, really pointing to problematic areas of advising. That it's difficult for us to do that with our non-professional advisors. And mainly because they have a lot of other obligations. They may not be as invested in the technology as the professional advisors are, and that they may not have the same kind of training and evaluation processes that professional advisors have. Now, it's not always true. I'm going to be speaking in broad generalizations here. There are areas where it's certainly not true. What even professional advising means varies widely across the academic units. So it's all a little hard to pin down. But the upshot is that where students have access to 12 months of professional advising, they really saw that we were as good as anyone. And in areas where they didn't have that kind of access, they found weaker outcomes. And again, that's a broad generalization, but you know, more or less where this study comes out. Now, I am willing to share the study with you. I'll warn you, it's 43 pages, so there's a lot there. I'm going to show you 2 today, but they do have quite a bit of samples and comparisons to other universities to, you know, just show what they think is going on here. I will say there are areas I don't think that they understood us as well as they could have, but I think there are other areas where they nailed, you know, what we do pretty well. So take it all with a grain of salt. We're certainly not sort of pinning all our ribbons on EAB, but it was interesting. It's interesting to see what an outside viewer thinks of what we do here. So having said that, any comments or concerns with what I've said so far? Is anyone surprised? Again, I know there's a lot here and it's hard to sort of absorb in one sitting. You may have seen it already. This report hasn't been a secret, although we didn't disperse it to the whole university. It is out there. Okay. Well, save those thoughts if there are some, and I'll wait until I'll show you here the next slide. These were what EAB presented to us as models to consider moving forward. Okay. Now, I will say we're not going to end up, I can tell you right now, we won't end up exactly on any of these models. And I'll show you why on the next slide when I'll show you what I've taken so far from the report and sort of what we're thinking going forward. Again, what we're thinking is entirely open to debate, change. We have a provost academic advising committee that has been pretty involved in cleaning up data and viewing this report and talking things over so far. We'll broaden those discussions going forward. So nothing is done. If you see anything here that's panicky, just let me know. I want to hear it. The one thing I'm positive of is our advisors work very hard, and none of this is meant as an indictment of what we're doing. It's a way to try to reach more students with the type of investment that you guys are doing already. And when we look at the numbers, there's a number of our students who aren't receiving sort of professional trained advising in their transactional advising. And that's been a little worrying for us. And it was something EAB repeatedly pointed out. Now, the 4 models they have here is 1, This one basically is just doing what you're doing. They have a central owner of advising. When you read central here, I don't want you to read provost office. I'll make this on the next slide as well. I think that's the greatest concern I've heard yet, is that the provost office wants to take over the advisors. That is not something we have discussed at all. The advisors will remain embedded in units. Read that more as standardization of advising and the career of advising, not as all the advisors being placed in some central building somewhere and advising. There are universities who have that model, particularly for the first 2 years. It's not something that we've really considered here at any point. University-wide 1-year centralized advising. This would be, basically our old university college model, where more and more freshmen were admitted to a central advising unit. Maybe they're admitted directly to their major, but they go get advised at a central advising unit. I think that was a conception for those of you who've been around long enough behind university college. I will say I was involved with that. It did not, in my opinion, I don't know whether it was execution or just wrong for WVU. It did not seem to work to me, at least. I like advisors being embedded in the academic units where they know what's going on. But that would be a minimal change here. The beginning recommendation for WVU was, again, this sort of university-wide year 1 advising with all professional. Sorry, I have rescue personnel heading up the street in an ambulance. And then professional advising with 3 and 4 remaining generally faculty driven advising. I know that doesn't describe any of our units particularly well. Again, these are sort of broad patterns rather than specific examples of what we would do. And then finally, what they viewed as the ideal recommendation was centralized professional advising and faculty being more on the faculty mentor side. So transactionally, the faculty, the professional advisors would handle the students, and that the faculty would remain in the system as faculty mentors. And in that range, they would give advice like graduate school advice, or maybe perhaps whether a minor is a good choice or a bad choice, given a career choice, but giving more sort of outcome-based advising rather than transactional advising. I understand that most of the advisors here are doing a lot of outcome-based advising as well. I don't think this is meant to take that away. I think it would be more of a supplemental model. So let me say that having presented these 4 models, I don't think any of them are exactly where we may settle, although we don't know where that is. But let me show you what we've considered so far. First of all, that we will add academic advising to the Provost Academic Transformation Initiative. We'll start that process late this fall with a presentation to the Board of Governors, and then move forward with that in the spring 2022, when academic advising and student success will become sort of official pillars of academic transformation. The Provost Advising Committee has done some valuable work, or a lot of valuable work, actually. It was a tremendous amount of work over the last 2 months cleaning up our advising data in Banner. And what this allowed us to see is what our advising advisor to student ratios are across the different academic units, and how many different types of positions of advisors we have in the university. Turns out there's a lot, somewhere on the order of 8 or 9 different HR positions that are basically advising in some shape or form. So again, that's a little difficult to manage, and it might be nice to bring some consistency to that. What we're looking at right now in our office is the costs of extending professional undergraduate advising to all undergraduate students. So this would basically mean that all of our 19,000 or so undergraduate students would be assigned a professional advisor for all of their course advising, transactional advising, whatever you want to call it. It's really not as big a jump as you might think. 4 or 5 of our main campus units are already almost entirely on a professional advising model. At least 1 or 2 units in health sciences are mostly professional advisor. So we're really looking at 3 or 4 academic units that don't do a majority of professional advising right now. So we're costing out how much it would cost to get those units so that they would use professional advisors to advise all the undergraduates. With that would come some level of standardization, probably in the career of advisor. We don't have any idea what that would look like yet, but what we'd like to do is have standardized advising positions in human resources that would be promotion eligible over a period of time, so that instead of having to transfer to a different unit to get a pay grade, a pay raise, or whatever, that advisors would have the incentive to stay with a unit and be promoted with a unit and be evaluated, with a view towards promotion over a period of time. Now, I don't know if that's a vision that's attractive to you or not. I welcome your feedback in that. It's pretty tentative, but it's also clear that, it's hard to be an advisor when you don't know exactly what your status is with the university. And we'd really like to clarify that. Along with that, we probably need a position of advising director for people who are overseeing other advisors. And there may be other positions that would go with that as well. One of our goals would be to make sure no one was harmed if we decided to transition that way in their salary. Let's see, we're also evaluating creating official positions of faculty mentor. The Provost Academic Advising Committee has been involved in this as well. And that's to sort of formalize the position of faculty members who would have advisees assigned to them for the purposes of providing that sort of outcome related academic advice, rather again than sort of being in the trenches with the CPOS and Navigate and all the other things that we know that professional advisors have to, or choose to utilize on a day-to-day basis to make their jobs as efficient as possible. And then finally, mentioned it before, but it probably bears saying again and again, centralizing advisors under the Provost's office is not currently one of the things that we're discussing. So that was a ton from me. Let me open it up to questions before I move on.
I just have a question, if you don't mind. I'm here at Potomac State, so obviously we have a different size school here and a very different model. We right now are also moving to a transition where we're going to have some more centralized advising. We received a grant to do that. The argument that a lot of people have against that is that, at least at our school, when you have a student we're only here for 2 years, right? The student moves on after 2 years, they graduate, and it's difficult enough to establish a relationship between the advisor and the student, or mentor and the student, and to get them to come and see you when they're having trouble and so forth, and decentralizing it to an anonymous office somewhere, or even if you have centers, little different centers around campus, you're removing the students from the faculty in their particular majors then, and that hampers establishing a relationship with a faculty member. How would you counter that?
That's a great question, Jay. Well, let me actually go to an expert. One of our people here who runs a professional advising office. Basically, they have a lot more experience with those types of challenges than I do. Michelle, Susan, any of you want to jump in? I can only see my first screen, and you both are unlucky enough to be on it.
There we go. Yeah. Hi, Evan. Hi, everyone. I can say that having our advising office within the Chambers College definitely allows our students to not only interact with, like faculty on a regular basis and get to know faculty. I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on in Chambers is the great relationship that our advising office has with faculty and, our career center as well, so that we are able to refer students to specific faculty department chairs. We see them often, we talk with them often. So, business students being able to communicate and have, support on both sides, support from us as their professional advisors, and then support from our faculty and support from our career development center is kind of a three-pronged effort to support the students as they move along through their program. So yeah, I agree that something that's centralized where it takes the students away from their college is not a move in the right direction. It's my opinion. So
Thanks, Susan. Yeah, I hope that helps. Again, I'm not a fan of centralized advising models. I never have been. We had them here. I didn't like them then. So, it may be that no one will listen to me, but my sense is that that's not the way we're going. I have visited Georgia State, and they do an excellent job with the first 2-year centralized advising model. I don't feel like it is as good for WVU from what I've seen. So I really like models where there are people embedded in the academic units who get to know the faculty, they get to know the chairs, they understand where the sticky points are, where they aren't. I think that works great. I really do. I don't have, this isn't an axe to grind with what we do where it's working, and it's working, I think, in a lot of places. However, it's very uneven, in my opinion, across the university. And I think that many of you would agree with me with that, because if you transfer a student out, if you send them to a different unit, that it's not always the same experience they may be getting in your unit. Or perhaps if you're in a unit where it's more, and you're a faculty advisor, you face the challenges of being pressed to do research, pressed to teach. Everyone is very busy. I'm not saying you're not, but you have a lot of competing priorities. And that doesn't mean you're not doing a great job. It just means that the transactional stuff has become very complicated. There's a lot to keep up with. Is that where we want our faculty spending their time, or is it not? I'm willing to debate that question. I see Dana's on here. What do you think, Dana? You're a great example. See, I'm not sure. You may be a professional advisor. You may be a faculty member. I'm not even sure, how that sorts out exactly in the Everly model.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about that in the advising group that we're in. I think what we do in biology works really well because we've got the cohort of students and because we have FTE assigned to advising. Mm-hmm. And that allows for course releases, which means that it's part of, I will admit, we don't have great assessment measures for what makes good advising, but it is a thing we are assessed on. And I think this conversation might move us forward in that direction so that we know what we're being assessed on as faculty advisors. One concern that I have about even moving to a more college-based model is how that affects curriculum decisions. Right now, we have a curriculum committee made up mostly of advisors. So we're getting advising data about how our students are succeeding. We're pairing that with what we're seeing in our own classrooms simultaneously, and that allows us to update our curriculum as needed, right? Add classes where we need classes. The advisors we'd see that in the advising hat because we see they can't get to graduation without this thing that we haven't offered or whatever, right? And I guess I'm curious for those more centralized models like Michelle's and Susan's, how that kind of curriculum update happens when there are more players in the conversation and when we're getting different data in different spaces.
I wanted to raise my hand, but I'm glad you said my name. So what we do that I really love is that members of my team kind of have a few majors within the college that we specialize in. And we sit in on curriculum committee meetings for our departments. We're not voting members. We don't have any of that, but we give valuable input to them. So that way, if we're seeing trends happen one way or the other with students, we can bring it up. And we, again, are working to get better communication with our chairs and things like that. But being part of those curriculum committees in the department level is very helpful. And then I sit on the college level curriculum committee. So I can kind of see the overall picture of what's happening and help connect the dots, I think, between what you guys are deciding as faculty and what we're seeing with the students.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Dana. I appreciate that. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you all sort of knew where we are, which is nowhere defined yet. So no time to panic. If you're having a panic attack, please just send me an email. I want to include everyone in this process. It doesn't mean we'll all be happy where it ends up. I think the professional advisors will be the people who will be happiest, I'm hoping, about where we all end up. But, you know, whatever we decide, I just want to make sure everyone has their voice heard and no one is surprised by what happens. And if I knew more right now, I would tell you more. I do not. Right now, we're really in the costing stage. How much of our budget, you know, do we have to be able to push really more advisors into the units that need them? And is that the way ultimately? Do we have the budget to do it at all? That's what we're looking at. Once we get through that, I think we'll be looking at sort of what's the best practices, what works the best across the university. You know, where are we? What is Chambers' model? What's Reed's model? What's Statler's model? What's the best part of Everly's model? And how can we sort of be inclusive about this and make sure we don't throw out things that aren't working, you know, in search of some sort of perfect mythical creature out there that will work for every college. If you know me, the one thing I'm sure of is that the colleges know their students better than I know their students. And so although I think it helps to have obviously central money, but also sort of an overview of what's going on in different areas, I've never been a fan of dictating to units what they have to do. So I'm starting from that point. And we'll work from there. And, you know, change is hard. It's always hard. But I think this will be good change. I really do. And if you don't think so, please feel free to let me know.
I had a question. I noticed this is all focused on undergraduate. I work with graduate students. So do you guys picture that model changing for graduate students or standardizing, or would standardizing my role fall under undergraduate?
Yeah, that's a great question, Amanda. I did envision graduate when I started, and then I realized that there was so much undergraduate that it was going to have to wait. I think we'll definitely get there. I think the models will be entirely different. So there's going to be a lot more latitude and flexibility on the graduate model. I think that faculty mentorships are more sort of prescribed there. I think that there's less, you know, sort of importance on transactional advising in most graduate, probably not all, but in most graduate, you know, the curriculum's pretty much you're taking this. But I do think, you know, we need to look at what we do with our graduate students, especially in terms of connecting them, you know, with services and giving them, if they are sort of gaps between what they're getting between faculty advising and from, you know, the dean's office or wherever the graduate advisors are, we need to start looking at that. But we haven't really gotten in very far with that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Evan, we have another question. Do you know if there are any connections between this potential shift and the recently announced Purpose Institute? The questioner asks or says, I noticed they are asking for faculty and staff volunteers for mentors, kind of outside the transactional components of advising. Can you comment?
Yeah, I can comment on that. I am not aware of any connections. This is sort of within the Provost office, and the Purpose Institute is more on the student life side. I will say that what I'm envisioning on Faculty Mentor is an actual documented thing in Banner, so that it would be useful for people for evaluation purposes. If they had part of their workload to be a faculty mentor, it would be formalized in Banner. I think that's very different than what they're planning with the, you know, the 168 and the Purpose Institute, which is more sort of informal mentoring type relationships. In my view, if you're going to be a faculty mentor and you're going to do a good job, we should provide a way to have that be documented and be of use to you, you know, in your evaluation. But still working on that one. Good question, though. Okay, having said that and asking for your feedback through whatever means you want to give it to me, I'm going to move forward to just some quick stuff. I don't want to take too much time. Probably another 15 minutes or so, I guess. I'll torch you with in PowerPoint here. This is the stuff I'm aware of that are coming changes as far as we get from a policy. One minor, we think, will be considered degree pursuant as fulfilling JEF 8 for fall 2022 semester. How that will work in DegreeWorks, I think it'll work similarly to how the dual degree or double major work in DegreeWorks, where if you have a dual degree or a double major declared, it'll check off that JEF 8. I don't know if May can speak to that yet. It's in process. I just didn't want it to blindside anyone. We have gotten approval from financial aid that they will allow a degree pursuant minor in the student audit. Anything you'd like to add to that, May?
No, but I think, like you said, it'll work like the dual degree and double majors. We're just working on it now.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to sort of jump the gun on that, but I knew it's something that we're thinking about with CPOS and everything else. I know that for better or worse, people have felt the need to use all kinds of inventive strategies to get their students through with a degree pursuant schedule. And I think this, you know, it's legitimate. Minors have always been considered as fulfilling the JEF 8 process. It wasn't recognized as part of CPOS. We argued that it should be, and I think that should benefit everyone going forward. At least I hope it will. I received feedback. I think Jen was part of that feedback, but that the advisors enjoyed having, I don't want to say Wednesday off because it obviously wasn't off, but Wednesday is a prep day between, you know, sophomore, freshman, senior, junior class advising. It may confirm that that will be part of the process going forward, that we'll continue to have that day in between class advising. I do understand why that would have been so valuable to everyone. So that's basically it for updates on advising. Any questions?
There is a question, if minors are CPOS because of JEF 8, does that mean that counting a minor as degree pursuant won't apply to double majors?
Yes, I believe so. Again, we haven't seen how it actually plays out in DegreeWorks, but yes, I believe so. One thing, you know, the whole reason for this is you need JEF 8 to graduate. A minor fulfills JEF 8, so hence a minor can be degree pursuant if it's fulfilling JEF 8. Now, I do think that the minor takes precedence over the three, you know, the three sort of random JEF classes that can also fulfill JEF 8. So it should be the case that if you have a minor, it should push those classes down. But again, we'll wait to see how that's carried out. May in her office, I'm sure, will do a good job implementing that.
I think so as well. Jay from Potomac State suggested one model being considered at Potomac State is that traditional advising would still be done by faculty, but students who need more intervention or students entering with low test scores would be paired also with a professional advisor to try to keep them from ending up on probation. Would that be a model that could work for WVU?
I don't know. It's something we could consider. I do think, you know, we already have 4 units that are fully professional advising. I think it's 4, right? It's Reed, CPAS, Chambers. What am I missing? Oh, CHS also are all on a professional advising model already and like it. So I think that's something we have to consider going forward. But I do think that one thing we could maybe do is have advisors who are targeted within units towards students that are at risk. And maybe that could be, you know, a different type of advising load, just depending on what people want to do, or perhaps not. Again, I think that's probably at the unit discretion. Okay.
Thank you.
Good questions today. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an update here on where we ended up as far as retention went this last year. You may know already. Basically, you can see the last 4 or 5 years retention numbers. This is by cohort. So add a year to get the university's retention. When we're talking here about, we had a fall 2020 retention rate of 81.2%. That means that it's the university retention rate for fall 21, but we're measuring the cohort of fall 2020 entering freshmen. So it's always got that little bit of nebulous definition with the retention rate, but that's basically what we're looking at. You can see we had a big jump, and much to everyone's surprise, with the fall 19 class, the poor COVID class. I will say that was mostly entirely typical when I looked at other institutions that are like us. The federal government threw around a lot of money. The universities had a number of policies like our high pass policy and laxer sort of enforcement of scholarships, for instance, in that summer. So it was pretty normal for the COVID class to actually retain somewhat better and for people to fall back a bit with the next year's class. We actually fell back less than some of the other schools I looked at, which is good. And I think this 81.2%, with everything COVID, all the challenges COVID represented, is really a good number for us to be at. This is our aspirational sort of progression to fall 24, which is one of the reasons why we've made advising one of our priorities to look at. It's hard to see, how we would continue to improve without a more sort of even distribution of advising resources. But if we can get there, it'll be good for us as an institution, and it'll be good for our students. And I think we're building a lot of positive momentum coming out of COVID. So let's hope that stays the case. This was a nice surprise. This was our 6-year graduation rate. You can see that it went up by 2 full points this year, which was great. Again, I'd like to see us eventually in a 65 to 67% 6-year graduation rate. Our 4-year graduation rate has not moved much. It's remained about 44% for the last 5 years. So, but I think these numbers are a tribute to all those sleepless nights everyone put in through COVID. We could not have maintained this sort of positive momentum without your work during COVID. And I don't say that to flatter you. I fully believe that. Our advisors and our faculty worked so hard to keep our students engaged during all the stresses of COVID. It was really impressive to watch as an institution. So thank you all for that. And I probably said that to you before, or I've said it to a lot of people before, but it continues to be true. Really, we pulled together in this institution well and supported our students through an extremely difficult time. And it was difficult for all of us, not just the students. I have 4 kids, 2 of which are younger, and I understand, everyone had commitments that were difficult with COVID. So thank you for everything you did. Okay, I just wanted to point out, I think this will be my last slide for today, but I wanted to point out our recent wins in our student success roadmap. And this is sort of our 3-year effort to standardize student success policies across campus and try to do things that we think are helpful to students that we can do on a policy or a practice side and didn't require necessarily changing everything the university did. And the first thing was in scheduling. Most of you know we've revamped most of our scheduling to try to get it on the grid. That seems to have really cut down on the number of students who have been able to build a productive, well, I said that backwards. It has seemed to increase the number of students who were able to build a productive schedule. But you guys are really the judge of that. Have you seen any effect of the grid scheduling so far?
Evan, I think that there's always consequences to, even our best intended and best laid plans. But I also think that, at least from my perspective and the conversations I've had across campus with folks, the dominoes that were affected got addressed quickly and reasonably. And so I think that, the system responded, well to any unintended fallout from that.
Yeah, I won't deny that there are students who had trouble building a schedule, which always happens, but it seemed to happen more in HSC this semester, and we're going to try to work out what happened with that. But in the other units, well, this is anecdotal only, but I noticed there were far fewer student complaints. We had an initial week of student complaints about schedules, and then it pretty much stopped, which is pretty good. That's anecdotal. But I do think scheduling on grid is one of the things our students indicated was a major concern to them, is that it was very difficult for them to work and build schedules with the courses they needed because they tended to be all over the place. And it was difficult to travel between the two campuses. So we're hoping that as people get used to the grid, as they keep scheduling on the grid, that continues to give our students the ability to build schedules that allow them to, have their other responsibilities while they're working. I think that allowing more online coursework, while we don't want our students to do all online, I think having more options and dropping the 12 credit rule for online coursework has also been helpful in building productive schedules for students when they may not have been able to take online classes before, just to sort of round out, what they want to do schedule wise. We've continued to block schedule for freshmen. Most of the feedback from that's been positive, though you may differ. Again, I don't want to speak for everyone. We are releasing that STEM schedule early so that people can hopefully make sure that their major classes don't conflict with things like chemistry and math. And then we are implementing wait lists. We had a partial implementation this semester, but I think as we go forward, we'll see more and more classes utilizing wait lists, which I hope is of benefit to people. We know the new suspension policy has greatly minimized the amount of suspensions we're handing out. We went from consistently having about 1,000 suspensions a year to around 300 suspensions a year by the changes in the suspension policy. Quite frankly, I don't know why it worked that well, but I'm glad it did. We're just suspending far fewer students. I hope it's because they're performing better and not just dropping all the classes. Data seems to indicate that that's why they're doing it, but we'll wait and collect data on that and have a final verdict. We got rid of most of the pre-majors, so students who are admitted to class are being admitted to guided pathways. Hopefully that makes it easier for them to understand that they're not actually in their aspirational major, but they have, goalposts to reach before they can join that major. We also think that it'll help students fixate less on one particular major choice and instead be exposed to a suite of majors, some of which may be more available to their particular academic talent range. We implemented the BIS degree, which brought F forgiveness to some of our students who are struggling the most. I know for a fact that that's been helpful to people who have those students who just don't seem to know what to do and really aren't probably going to get into the major that they've been shooting for the last 3 years. That's always been a problem demographic for us. I think the BIS is an answer for that. And I hope you find it useful to have when having those discussions with students who just aren't progressing the way we'd like. And then finally, we're trying to bring some harmonization to tutoring efforts, trying to expose students to tutoring earlier on in the semester, and really trying to track our tutoring sessions and navigate so we can start to pull data on how well tutoring affects final grades, making that connection between if a student goes to a tutor, what kind of improvement are we seeing, in the final tally.
Evan, we do have a question about wait lists applying to graduate courses.
Okay.
Will wait lists apply to graduate courses? And if so, can the department override the wait list and allow a student to register who was not on the wait list?
That is a fantastic question, and I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, and we'll need to ask that of May and her team. I know that they had to leave. They had a 4 o'clock meeting. So she and Josh had to jump off. Stay tuned. I'll try to put that in an MOW as soon as I can get a response for that.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Really good question. I just don't know. I do know that any undergraduate class can apparently just implement waitlist through scheduling.
We also have another question regarding online classes, and that is, will some be restricted for non-traditional students again? This particular advisor noticed that most did not have restrictions, and many of this advisor's non-traditional students could not get into the classes that they needed.
So that's a tough question to give a general answer to. I probably need to know specifics if you want to ask me. It depends. The way online classes are run differ wildly by unit. So if you want to email me with that question, I can certainly point you in the right direction for an answer. It's a good question.
Kathy, I'll ask you to email Evan then. Will the tutoring be offered online as well? If so, will online students have access to these resources?
Yes, online students should have access to all the resources that on-campus students do, even if it's not exactly in the same way. So yeah, I don't know. Is Barbara Molyneux on here?
Hey, Evan, this is Tammy Bischoff from online.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi. All of our students do already have access to tutoring. They can participate in the on-campus tutoring office or sessions if they do it virtually. But we also have the option for colleges to put online tutoring in their classes, which we've been working with some of the departments to do that. So yes, our students have access to everything that everyone else has.
Thanks, Tammy.
Yep.
Yeah, and most of the tutoring centers are still doing online appointments as well. So that's another option.
Evan, it also appears that online Jeffs such as sociology, psychology, English 101 and 102 sections filled very quickly, and online majors were unable to add these classes. So I think the unintended consequences of us removing that 12 credit hour restriction, I'm assuming, maybe incorrectly, that may be part of what we're
No, I think
seeing.
you're probably correct. Many of our non-traditional students register later than on-campus students, unfortunately. So, you know, if the course isn't specifically for a non-traditional audience, there is a strong chance it could fill up, because many of our traditional students like to take online classes. That is something I think we have to continue to work through. I will say in the next year or two, we will be introducing an online campus code for WVU, primarily for non-traditional students. I don't want to get into a lot of detail in it, but that may clear up some of the problems between, you know, we're going to try to be more intentional about having on-campus students, yes, have access to online classes, but have specific classes reserved for non-traditional students in online majors. So that's something we're trying to work towards. Now, that does mean that, you know, traditional students may not always have access to online options. And I know I get a lot of complaints about that in my office. And I just repeat that WVU is primarily a residential institution, and that we have online majors if you can no longer attend in person. It's not always my favorite answer to give, but we simply can't offer every class in dual modalities. So at some point, you know, students want online and we don't have it. I just don't have a great answer for them.
We have another question regarding online campus code. Will it be similar to CEM, EMBA code for online MBA students? You may not know the answer to that. I don't know, Evan.
Well, I am the undergraduate provost, but I don't know. I think it basically, I mean, behind the scenes, it functions a lot similar to the PSC and tech codes. So it would be a different campus. Now that's functional banner stuff. It doesn't mean the students are literally in a different campus necessarily.
Right. Great, thanks.
Any other questions or concerns? Sorry, I always enjoy these conversations, but I feel like I have to rush through everything, and it's just a lot of me talking, when really what I like to hear is, you know, what your issues are and how we can help. So, and you know, I know it's late on a Tuesday, but any other feedback you have for me, please feel free to email me. I'd love to hear it.
We are at almost quarter after. Now we do have the Zoom set up until 4:45. So, you know, people can, Evan, you can continue. We are recording this and we will post the recording to the AAC website once that gets rendered. So we can keep going on, or if you think this is a good stopping point, we can do that too.
And I'm happy to stick around, but yeah, we can definitely stop.
I know we have a number of folks that could not attend today. We had great attendance at about 74, 75, but I know there were a lot of others who emailed me directly indicating that they couldn't and were asking, you know, please record it. I want to hear this information. So we can certainly continue on. And those of you that are able to stay with us, stay. And then those of you who can't can obviously pick up the recording when it gets posted for the remainder of the information that we go over. If you're Evan, you're okay with that?
Sure.
Well, let's keep calm and carry on then.
I'll ask a question if it's all right.
Please.
So I advise in Statler. I'm a faculty, so advising is part of what I do. One of the issues that we have frequently with students trying to register is that they don't seem to know what they can register and what for and what they can't. There are special sections of physics and math and online courses that are only for online students and access courses that are only for access students. And our students don't understand that. We try to communicate it to them, but it's very confusing for them. And so one of the things that we end up having to repeat the same reply over and over and over, you're not eligible for that section because it's this and you're not that. Is there some way that we can make that a little simpler for our students and a little bit easier for them to understand? For example, could we make opt-in for honors classes instead of opt-out for honors classes? One of the most frequent things that they do is try to register for honors sections when they're not eligible for honors. Now, most honors students typically would be able to recognize, oh, I need an honors class, I'll opt in. Instead, everybody gets all the honors classes and they don't recognize that they're not eligible for those. One of the big issues with registration is these, you're not eligible for that type courses. I even had to quit teaching a class that was kind of a special course. But because of this, I couldn't teach it anymore. So we gave it up. It was a great course, but we don't do it anymore because because we couldn't say, hey, this is a special section. So is there some way that we could make that a little bit clearer and a little bit easier for students to handle and a little less frustration on our end?
Rod, I as chair of the AAC, I will jump in here. This is not lost on us as an executive committee. In fact, in our meeting just before Thanksgiving, I kind of did a straw poll because I was finding with my advisees in particular that I had a lot more students this year, panicked emails, you know, fraud, can I see you, 911, you know, alerts, because they couldn't get into a class. And it was precisely those reasons. They were, I think the downside is that some of our students have gotten so used to Schedule Builder that they don't understand what all of us who've been advising for a while, they don't understand the old school. All of us OG advisors, you know, are used to that. And so I do want to validate you and let you know you are not alone in experiencing that with your advisees. Several of our colleagues across campus mentioned the same thing when I did bring it up But that is something that we can certainly put on a future agenda for the AAC, and perhaps even roll it into the Provost's Academic Advising Council somewhere in there too, if or when appropriate. But it's a very, very good point. And it ends up taking an inordinate amount of our time. So I do feel your frustration, and you're sending the same reply. And despite me spending 50 minutes in my first year seminar class, teaching them how to do it, it still wasn't happening.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Todd. I think we're a little limited by the technology that we have on campus. I think for, students who are used to everything being point and click and drag and drop and everything else, it's very hard for them to understand why it can be as cumbersome as it can be. I mean, why are those options shown to them in the first place if they can't register for them? Yeah, I get it. I do think it's something that the committee should continue to address and work with the registrar's office on. I know that everyone wants it to be transparent, so there are technological obstacles to making it as easy, especially for our students who, despite everyone's claim about their being technologically savvy, I think they're phone savvy. I think if it's not a phone product and it's not an app, judging from my own kids, they can barely use a computer at all. So, maybe a Chromebook, I don't know.
This is Lori. I have one more thing to say about this situation. With all of my forensic students using Schedule Builder now, it doesn't show them notes for the classes they're trying to take. Just as an example, we have certain forensic minor classes that are only for minors. Well, you don't know that unless you look at the schedule of courses on the registrar's website and look at the notes, because those aren't shown up in Schedule Builder to tell them that. Is there a way to get the notes into, and that's probably an MA question, but
yeah, it is. I mean, I think any feedback you can give them on Schedule Builder is probably appreciated. I'm not sure what the technological limitations are, but these are reasonable things to ask for sure.
And one of the other things I've noticed, my students try to take things that have the section numbers P and T, which are not on our campus. If they just have WVU marked in Schedule Builder, it still gives them the T and P classes as options.
Lori, we actually discussed that the week before Thanksgiving as well. So that is one of several questions that we do have to pose to the registrar's office regarding the particular Schedule Builder technology, because you're not the only advisor to have brought that up, that students were seeing. Even though they had said to Schedule Builder, I only want main campus courses, that they were still getting those sections coming up when they should be. So I don't know whether it's a glitch with a recent revision of the Schedule Builder software or not, but we can certainly check into it and get back to everybody about it.
Okay, I mean, I send out an email at the beginning of my advising time saying you can't register for P or T. You can't register for, if it's like A for access. I can't give you permission to register for another department's classes. I can't give you overrides for that. I can only do mine. I think those are things that maybe need to be communicated to the whole student body in some form, but I don't know how. I don't know if that'd make a difference. I sent it to all of our forensic students, but I still, even yesterday, got an email, can you give me an override for this biology section? And what you want to say is, no, did you not read the email that I sent you that says I can't do this? But then you refer them to the proper person and look to see if they can take the class, if they're eligible. But I just don't think that they pay attention. So I don't know what the answer is to all that.
I'm not sure either, Lori, but if they would have been around back in the day when we had number 2 pencils and 3-ply registration forms that went through a scanning feature to get them registered for courses. They don't understand rotary phones either. So,
well, I'm 38 and a half years here at WVU, so I've been through it all.
Yeah, I'm not far behind you, so I understand. But it is a good point. So I will discuss it with the council executive committee, and we can continue trying to get the best solutions, because we need to make this most effective for our students, but we also need to make most effective for our use of our time as advisors too.
Yeah, I mean, there are only 2 of us right now in forensics, and I've talked to over 200 students, and I know Dr. Bobick has talked to over 200 students. We are, I believe, in the process of getting a 3rd person that's going to split between faculty and advising for our first years, since we tend to just have so many first years that then dwindle off by the time they get to me doing the upper level students. But it's just a lot when you have to keep saying the same thing over and over and trying to be responsive in a 24-hour period to an email, which is what we try to do.
It's why we were really grateful that we had Wednesdays to respond to all those emails.
Yeah, well, I started about 7:15 in the morning, and my advising doesn't start till 9. So that's when I usually do my emails that I've gotten the night before after I've clocked out. And then I generally try to answer them all during the day, but being a classified staff, I'm not permitted to work overtime to answer emails in the evenings when I get them. So I have to just have that time in the morning to try and do that. But yeah, I don't know what the answer to all that is. After doing this for all these years, it's just hard.
But let me chip in here on that and say we shouldn't be looking at technological obstructions. We should look at technological solutions. If Banner is smart enough to know that this student can't take that class, then let's make Schedule Builder smart enough to know that this student can't take that class. It should be able to understand that the technology should work for us, not the other way around. So I think that it's a matter of making Schedule Builder a little bit smarter so that it understands the same thing that Banner understands. Right now, it can't do that. And so I think it's just a matter of making Schedule Builder work for us a little bit better instead of us working for Schedule Builder. Am I wrong?
No, that would make perfect sense. If we could add notes to the classes in Schedule Builder, and take out the other campuses, if they've only chosen main campus, that would be a big help. They're not going to see those classes available to them.
Right, that's what we need to have happen. And that doesn't seem like a very hard problem to me from a programming standpoint, but maybe it is.
Well, I'm not a programmer, but I think it would not be hard for somebody that is. But
Evan, maybe you can work a little bit with the Schedule Builder folks, the people that create that, and help us out with this.
They were just here, Todd. You missed your opportunity. Yeah, I think.
Bring them back. I'm sure that we'd have lots of people that would love to meet with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think this would make a great, I'm sure everyone has technology frustrations. It's been part of advising certainly as long as I've been here, but we have a lot of systems and they often communicate or don't communicate in interesting ways. I do think that if, the registrar isn't actively who manages schedule builder. If they're not actively receiving your feedback, they may not know it's an issue. I do also think there's a fix in place, but ITS, our internet technology information technology people, are backlogged. And so sometimes what sounds like a minor fix takes a very long time. I think there are plans to work on this, but you'd be better off, probably scheduling a session to talk with Josh and Amay and the team, about your frustrations, because any sort of plans we have to improve our IT infrastructure, they're going forward, but it's a long, expensive process, unfortunately. But your points are well taken. These are, they're little things. They're not even that little, really, but they're things that take up your time that could be better spent doing other things. So I understand the frustration. Anyone else have thoughts or concerns? All right, well, thank you all for having me today. I appreciate it. We can give you 16 minutes back, I guess. So enjoy that at the end of the day. And thanks for so many of you showing up and having this discussion with me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Evan, so much. Really appreciate your insight. And we will share out the recording on the website as soon as it renders, and we can get it posted. We also have an announcement that Alex Tilka wants to make. So Alex, would you like to take it over?
Yeah, just real quick. So many of you probably know Tony Burbridge. She was in the School of Medicine Assistant Director of Advising for a long time. She is retiring at the end of the year, and we have a little get together happening tomorrow at the Health Science Center in the West Virginia room from 2 to 4 p.m. Everybody's welcome. So please feel free to stop by, congratulate Tony, and that's it.
Thank you very much, Alex. Okay, everybody. Well, on behalf of the AAC, we want to thank you for another great semester. Reiterate many of the praises that Evan has shared. I'm very proud of what we do to help our students succeed, and very much see the numbers increasing because of all of your efforts. So thanks again for that. We will resume our AAC workshops beginning in January. Again, they will be the last Tuesday of each month. We will have 3 particular workshops, one in January, one in February, one in March, and then April will be our advising celebration. So stay tuned for more information on those, and I do hope that the message of the week is helping to both inform you well, but also unclutter, pun intended and unintended at the same time, your inbox. So thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your day.